We have Gary Craig here, who is the founder of EFT. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and he had an amazing oneness experience that I want him to share with you today. So, Gary, take it away, whatever you want to say.
Well, thank you, Oberly. Not everybody listening in is familiar with EFT, so let me talk just a minute or two about what that is. And that segues nicely into the experience that we're talking about.
Great.
EFT is something I developed back in 1995, and it really has shortened the typical therapy process from weeks, months, or years to get something done to hours, sessions, sometimes even minutes. And it does that by, at least the original form, is doing that by taking our fingertips and tapping on various meridians while we were tuning into some kind of emotional issue. And as it turns out, it got very efficient. It has overhauled the therapy practices of many people, and is the forerunner to my experience. So let me take off from there if I can.
Absolutely.
Before I actually brought EFT to the public, I didn't even know about it at the time because I was lying in bed. This was in 1988, and I was going over my list of things to do for the day. A lot of us kind of do that, you know. But one of the things that was unique about that was that I had developed this list of things to do that was so long. I just have a hard time saying no to people. So I had committed myself to stuff I couldn't possibly get done in any reasonable period of time. And as I was waking up going through all of this in my mind, I got very frustrated with myself. And I basically said to myself, who needs this? Now, you know, that doesn't sound very dramatic. You know? I mean, who needs this? I mean, we all say that in one way, shape, or form anyway. Okay? But what was different about this is that I really meant it. I meant it not at a academic conversational level. I meant it at a organic, really own it type level. Who needs this? And in a flash, what I'm going to describe here took place in like less than a second, but anyway, I was going through my list, you know, what a silly world this is. Who puts all this stuff on themselves, and look at this and look at that and da-da-da-da-da. And a lot of stuff went through my mind in this fraction of a second. And at that moment, the only way I can describe it is that I let go of this world. I let go. Like, no longer did the world have a hold on me. And I've tried to describe this in lots of different ways. And it's almost cliche-ish to say, oh, there's no words for it, but that's the truth. There is nothing in our vocabulary in this world of separated bodies that we think we're in, you know, that would let us hang any of these beliefs, these new experiences on that I'm going to describe to you. It's just, but anyway, let me try. So it was like I was in this bubble. All my life, I'm in this bubble, okay? Outside this bubble, unbeknownst to me, is the oneness experience. It is God. It is nothing but love. And I have to emphasize that term, nothing but love. That's very hard to get our heads around, right, of nothing but love, because we're so used to other things having, you know, intruding. You know, we resent this and we have anger that and why this and that, all that stuff. Nothing but love. No disease, no anger, no negative emotions, nothing but love. Try to get your head around that if you can. But anyway, that's what's outside this bubble, unbeknownst to me until this experience. Inside the bubble, I'm seeing what we all consider to be the world. there's mountains and there's oceans and cars and buildings and people, lots of people, lots of souls running around encased in individual little bodies, all right, competing with each other, loving each other in some fashions, but competing in others, and all of that. A world of separate things. And then it's when I had this experience, this who needs this thing, and I let go of this world, it's like somebody came along with a pin and popped the bubble. The bubble pops, and at that moment, the whole world as I had been used to for, at that time, 48 years, just vanished. Poof, gone. And in it was this outside thing, this nothing but love, this oneness experience. It was a gasp. It was a, and at the same time, I recognized, even though this is a very brief experience that happened, there's no time in it, but as the world would see it, it was a minute or two or three or a few minutes or something like that. But during this time, it was very clear to me that experience, this oneness experience, was our real, true reality. And the reality that we think we have, that is, my reality is I'm Gary and I'm running around inside this body, okay? And you are Hoberly and you have to run around inside your body, and all the listeners are running around inside their bodies and all that. That is a fiction, even though it seems so convincingly real here. It is, compared to the other reality that I'm describing, the oneness. It's like a dream.
Right.
And it's like when you have a dream that you know about now. You go to sleep at night and here comes a dream, okay? That dream, while you're having it, seems so real, even though you're violating reality as you know it. I mean, at one moment you're playing bridge, with some very famous celebrity maybe. And the next moment you're in a submarine someplace, and after that you're in a parachute floating over Japan, and you think nothing
right
of all that reality that you're violating because you move from here to there and all this stuff, okay? And even if we put, sensors on you, we would find as you're having this dream, this is so real to us at that moment, that the sensors would show, the blood pressure changing and the pulse shifting and the adrenaline flow changing and all that stuff, indicating that we're believing, our body is reacting as though it's all very, very real. Okay? But then, in the dream, eventually you wake up and you go, oh, that was just a dream. You think nothing more of it. You go about your day and on you go. Okay? Oh, and during this dream, by the way, if somebody did something to you that you might resent or have great anger about or something like that, no, it was a dream. You don't think about it. If you did something that you would ordinarily have guilt for, dream, you wake up, what's that? You don't give it a second thought. You go about your day. What I'd like to suggest here is that even though this experience of running around inside separate bodies seems so real, I'm suggesting we are dreaming now. And all the stuff that goes on here, the goods, the bads, and everything else, is but a fiction. A convincing one, yes, absolutely convincing, okay? But it's just a fiction. It's a dream. And when we wake up from it, which is what I did when that bubble popped briefly, okay? When you wake up from it, you go, whew, what was that? It was a dream. And so all the stuff that we go about now, all the resentments we have and everything else that we deal with on this seemingly convincing experience becomes nothingness. Okay. Now, that's really hard to get across to somebody who's never been there. I got it. Okay. So we're here to talk about these kind of things so people can get a sense of it if
Right.
they haven't had some sense of it already.
Right.
Now,
Right.
the other thing, there are several things I got, but another important thing I got out of that oneness experience was that that sense of love that is so all-encompassing and so far beyond any kind of love we pursue,
Mm-hmm.
running around inside separate bodies. That love was so all-encompassing and so powerful. And by the way, I don't mean powerful in the sense of dominating something. I mean powerful in the sense of no limits. That if I, or you, Hoberly, or anyone else that's listening in, could experience that and maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't maintain it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to get back there, okay? Experience it and maintain it. You could walk into a hospital and your mere presence, just your presence, because the love would be so exuded and so intense and so all-encompassing, people would start to heal. Tumors start to subside. Damaged lungs heal and blood work get better and all the stuff that goes on, okay? Surgeries would be unnecessary, all this kind of thing. Just one's presence. So as a result of that, I brought up EFT to the world in 1995, and you would think, having had my experience, that I would bring in the spiritual aspect to it, that oneness experience. And I tried. But I would ask people at the time, I would tell them about my experience, or I try to anyway. And at the time, they would just sort of roll their eyes, sort of pat me on the back in a way and say, well, there, Gary, you'll feel better tomorrow. Kind of thing. They just weren't ready
Right.
for it. Okay. So I introduced EFT as the tapping form, which I described earlier. I left the spiritual piece out of it. Right? So time went on. The tapping form of EFT became very successful. There's millions of people using it around the world. And then a few years ago, I began asking the questions again about people about the spiritual aspect of my story. And now, for reasons I can't really explain, there's some movement afoot. People are more interested. And I'd say this and they'd go, oh, really? Oh, tell me again. What was that? Tell me some more. Oh, I read a book about, or I had a friend that did, or whatever. Somehow their interest now is beginning to shift in this very useful direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I created an advancement to the tapping form of EFT. We no longer do, at least I no longer do the tapping form. I bring in the spiritual dimension in the form of a very non-denominational form, which I call the unseen therapist. In fact, I have an intro book by that name, The Unseen Therapist. And maybe, Hoberly, you could give the address to that or the link to that or something like this. It's a free intro book. But anyway, so I did that and brought it out and began educating people, yourself included, Hoberly, on how this process would work.
Yes.
And we're starting to bring in our unseen therapist, this very non-denominational name. It stands for whatever name you want to give to it, depending on where you're coming from. You could call it God or Jesus or Buddha or higher power or anything else. It stands for the ultimate loving essence behind most spiritual practices. So you put your own name with it, okay? So But we will call on that. And sure enough, headaches start to subside, anxieties get lower, and on and on and on it goes. And all we're really doing is identifying the particular problem. There's a little skill in that. Okay? Identifying the particular problem, and then bringing in the unseen therapist to do the job. And we've got extraordinary stuff. We have a whole list of things I call impossible healings on our website, and impossible is defined as healing that goes beyond the typical reach of man-made methods, medicine and the like, So anyway, that's the story, Hoberly. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to ask me about or whatever on that, but I'm open if you have more.
This is great. I just love this. And if you have any other stories that you want to share of the impossible healings, maybe of yourself, your personal stories, we can do a whole nother video on that. So think about that. That's always an option. And for anyone who's listening, if anyone has your own mystical story, I would be open to hearing those, and people can submit those either in written form, or we can do other videos or podcasts. So lots of opportunities. So thank you so much for sharing this, Cary. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Hoberly. Thank you.
Thank you.